Communication skills involve listening, which is receiving, and expressing, which is sending. Who knows what these percentages stand for? 38% of the message is through what we hear, or verbal communication. That includes our tone of voice, vocal clarity, and verbal expression. 55% of the message is through what we see and feel, which means our body language. That includes our facial expressions, eye contact, posture, dress, and so on. And 7% of the message is through words only. So you can see the importance that body language and our verbal expression has in the art of communication. In this next exercise, I want you to go around the table and brainstorm what contributes to effective communication. The things that contribute to effective communication are: 1. Eye contact. You need to establish eye contact as soon as the customer walks in. Number 2, body language. Look interested and be open for communication. The way you stand has a lot to do with it. Don't cross your arms. Lean towards rather than away from the customer, and focus when the customer is talking to you. Number 3, a smiling face and a friendly manner. Always be approachable and look approachable. Make sure you smile and appear friendly. Number 4, listening and silence. Know how to listen effectively without interrupting so that you hear what the customer wants. Active listening is just as important as effective speaking when it comes to communication. Number 5, summarising what has been said and paraphrasing. Now this means putting it into your own words. This helps both you and the customer understand what has been said and what is required as the next step. Number 6, check for understanding. Check that you understood everything that has been said, and it's always a good idea to put it into writing. Listening skills. So what is active listening? Active listening is giving the customer your full attention. If you need to do something urgent, let them know and do it, just as long as it doesn't take too long. And then give the customer your full attention. Be available. There is nothing worse than talking to someone who is constantly looking at their watch, because you know that they are distracted and that they will have to run off. If you are on your own, have an answering machine on so that you don't have to answer calls. Answering a phone call or any other distraction where you may have to leave the customer for a short period of time interrupts the flow and you could lose that sale. Make sure you maintain eye contact throughout the conversation. Now, this not only creates rapport and builds trust, but shows the customer that you are really listening. Watch your posture. Show that you are interested by leaning forward and being attentive. Concentrate on what is being said, and finally paraphrase so that you show you understand and have heard what has been said. We will now move on to questioning skills. What are open-ended questions? Open-ended questions consist of what, when, where, which, who, why, and how. Now, open-ended questions leave the door open for communication and require the customer to elaborate. However, you need to know when to use open-ended questioning, as in some instances it may be more appropriate to use closed questions instead. So, when are open-ended questions useful? Open-ended questions are useful when 1. You need more information. 2. You need specific information. 3. You need clarification. 4. You are trying to find out about a particular person, problem, situation, or event. And 5. When you are trying to get someone to open up. Now, closed questions are questions that start with will you, do you, can you, etc. Now, these questions require only a yes or a no answer. Again, know when to use these types of questions and avoid asking them if you are trying to get information that requires more than just a yes or a no answer. Now, closed questions are useful when 1. Only a yes or a no answer is required. 2. When you want a short, quick answer. 3. There is nothing further to discuss. 4. You don't want to encourage further discussion or excuses. And 5. When you are dealing with a talkative person and you don't wish to encourage them. Now, this next exercise is a role play, which should take about 5 minutes, giving each person approximately 2.5 minutes. So, in groups of 2, you will practice open-ended questioning with your partner. Person A is the customer and person B is the sales assistant. Person A, the customer, needs to think of an item that they are interested in purchasing and tell person B, the sales assistant, what it is. For instance, this could be a dining table. Person B is to ask as many open-ended questions as possible to determine what type of dining table would best suit the customer's needs. For example, this could include questions such as, how many people does it need to seat? What style are you looking at? Which kind of timber did you have in mind? When would you like to have it delivered? The person playing the customer should answer each question when it is asked, and then this will lead on to the next open-ended question from person B. Whenever person B asks a closed question by mistake, person A should pull them up on it. Now, when you're finished, swap and do the same. Now let's move on to body language. Exercise 6. Now in this exercise, I want you to think about what makes up body language. Go around the room and each person is to write down on the whiteboard one thing that makes up body language. So now that you have your list, did you include the following? Eye contact, eye movement and focus, facial expressions, stance and posture or how we held ourselves, personal space between us and others, gestures or hand movements, touch or physical contact, orientation, how we face each other, how we dress, accessorize, our hairstyle and grooming, the physical effects such as our heartbeat, breathing and perspiration. When you meet a customer, your body language should reflect the following. The first thing you should do is smile and make eye contact. This makes you look available, friendly and approachable. You also need to have a look of confidence. This makes the customer feel comfortable and lets them know that they are in safe hands. You should introduce yourself. This way the customer knows who to ask for when they come back or if they call. It may be appropriate to shake hands, especially if a customer is introducing you to someone. Make sure you have a firm handshake and offer them your full hand. Always lean forwards and look interested. When you lean forwards, it means that you are paying attention and listening. Have an open stance and don't cross your arms. When you cross your arms or when you lean backwards, it indicates that you are pulling away and that you're not open to communication. Try to use gestures when you speak. This makes you more expressive and seem more passionate about the subject that you are talking about, rather than standing motionless and still and being flat. Always be well dressed and groomed so that you look professional. Paraphrase, so that both you and the speaker are sure of what has been said. And finally, use your reflective skills. Now, reflective skills keep the lines of communication open. So what are reflective skills? Now, reflective skills consist of the following. Number 1 is paraphrasing. Number 2 is reflecting feeling. Number 3 is reflecting meaning. And number 4 is summarising. So let's start with paraphrasing. Now, paraphrasing means summarising what has been said into your own words so that both the speaker and the listener understand and are sure of what has been said. Reflecting feeling is the same as mirroring the speaker's feelings and emotions. Now, it is important to tune into the speaker's feelings and emotions so that we as listeners understand the speaker's reaction. We can also reflect feelings by being sympathetic to what they are saying. Reflecting meaning. When you reflect meaning, you show that you understand what the speaker is saying. The content of the message and the feeling gives meaning. Now, summarising. This reflective response is designed to recap the major parts of the conversation. Sometimes, during the course of the conversation, we end up with lots of useless bits and pieces of information. In summarising, we can help the speaker to sort through this and to help them to say what they really want to say without all the useless bits and pieces. In this exercise, you will practice all of the communication skills we have just talked about. This includes active listening, effective questioning, reflective skills and body language. Get into groups of 2. Person A is to tell person B a story of an unpleasant experience, and person B will use all of the communication skills mentioned to understand and to connect with the speaker and build a good rapport. Swap and do the same. Now, your story shouldn't take any more than 2 or 3 minutes each person. Telephone skills. When we talk about phone skills, the first and most important thing is to know how to use the phone. That is, knowing the technical aspects. It may sound simple and basic, but so many people in organisations don't know how to successfully transfer the caller if necessary, how to put them on hold, or how to get the messages off the message bank. Secondly, speak clearly and slowly. Phone conversations are never as clear as face-to-face, especially if the caller has an accent or a limited understanding of the English language. Now, make sure the caller understands what you are saying and that you understand what the caller wants. If you are getting numbers, especially in the case of credit card numbers, make sure you repeat them one by one and make sure you ask the customer to spell names and addresses so that there can be no mistake. And if you haven't heard properly, get them to repeat it. Give them your name and organisation. Now, this is very important so that the caller knows who to ask for if they come back or if they call again. Take the caller's details and make sure you take all of their contact details, especially their name and the best contact number. An email address is also a good idea to have on hand in case you can't get through to them on the phone. Again, repeat the phone numbers and spell names if necessary, so that you don't get them wrong. Always take messages, especially if the call is for someone else. Find out what the caller wants by asking open-ended questions and making sure you write down all the details. Show interest in their inquiry. You can do this by paraphrasing and summarising what they have just told you. Take notes and always have a notepad ready, as pieces of paper get misplaced and lost. The other thing is never eat or drink while you are on the phone. There's nothing worse than hearing someone munching, chewing or sipping away while you're speaking to them. Don't try to deal with someone else's customer unless they specifically ask you to. Take a message and let the caller know that you will pass the message on to the person that they are after. Written communication. With written communication, you should always write clearly and concisely to make sure your message is understood. And with anything handwritten, it needs to be legible. If you are answering an email or letter, always refer to the letter and include the date of the inquiry and the nature of the query. Be friendly without being too formal or too informal. Start the letter or the email off with "Dear," if you have never met the person or if you need to be more formal. Or you can also say good morning or good afternoon, whichever the case may be when you are writing an email and you don't wish to be as formal. Or if you know the person, you can say "Hi John" or whatever their name is. Always check your spelling and grammar. Make sure you have spell check switched on. There is nothing worse than misspelled emails or grammatical errors, which there is absolutely no excuse for with today's technology. Always proofread. Make sure your letters and emails make sense. If you don't proofread, the chances are that they may sound unprofessional and badly written. Make sure you don't repeat the same word 2 or more times in the same sentence. Also, make sure that you use short sentences and paragraphs rather than long, drawn-out ones, as they are much easier to follow and make sense of. Use bullet points when making a list. And make sure you use periods instead of connectors such as "and." Finally, make sure you answer their request. And if you can't, explain why not. And always be timely and apologise for any delays. Well, that concludes our session 1. You may want to take a short break before starting session 2, but before you go, what I want you to do is make a list of all the learning points for this session. What you found most relevant, what you intend to implement into your everyday work life, and what you most enjoyed.